Hey everyone, welcome back to Gaming While Bearded. Today we're going to take a look at the third game in a series rather than the first two. And that's because the first two have been out for a while and there's a lot of content on them already. I, of course, am talking about the Dark City series that have been published by Façade Games. Their first game being Salem, 1692, and their second game being Tortuga, 1667. So we'll definitely take a look at these two later on, but right now I want to talk about their most recent release, and that is Deadwood, 1876. Alright, Deadwood, 1876, the third game in the Dark City series, published by Façade Games. The box itself is really unique, as all of their games are so far. They all look like they're a book, they open up beautifully, and they reveal some pretty nice components. So when we open the box up, the first thing we have is our rule book, and then you're going to have a small little satchel that's going to have all of your dice and meeples inside of it. You're going to have three really nice coasters that are going to represent the different areas that you're going to be battling over. And then you have a tuck box that's going to be full of cards. So really small, not a lot of components at all, but everything here is going to lead to one pretty great experience. Alright, so here we have a 5-player game of Deadwood 1876 set up. So the setup is really simple. Each player is going to choose a character card, just like this one here, which has a colored side and a black and white side. The nameplate indicates which color you are, so whatever color you get, you're going to take that matching star meeple as well. You're going to take the meeples and you're going to place them inside of the satchel that came with the game, and then you're going to draw them out one by one, and you're going to spread them out onto the 3 locations, starting with the gem theater and moving in a clockwise direction. This is going to be the starting teams for the start of the game. So remember, the key, or the way that you win this game, is to be the last person standing at the end of the final showdown. But in order to get to the final showdown, your team or your location needs to be the one that has the most gold. So you're going to have to work together before you turn around and start shooting each other. So right now you have the red and the black player on the gem theater, the green and the purple on the saloon, and then the brown is the only player at the Grand Central Hotel. So let's go ahead and take a turn real quick and see what happens. So at the beginning of the game, each player is going to get 4 Deadwood cards, and each card is going to have 2 icons on it. You're going to have a gun at the top and then an action that you can take at the bottom. So you can either play it for the action or you can play it for the gun. If you're going to play the gun, you have 2 choices. You can play to a player's safe who is not in your location so that you can try to steal it from them, or you can play it to a character card of someone who is in your location. If you're going to be playing to a safe, then you're going to be trying to steal that safe from that player and add it to your own safe collection. If you're going to play against a player, you are playing to boot that character out of your location and into another. Remember, you want to be the location that has the most gold at the end of the first part of the game. So if somebody's not holding their weight, then you might need to get rid of them. Or if someone is just storing guns instead of gold, or you suspect them of doing that, then they're not going to be much help for the gold count, but they're going to be difficult to beat in the final showdown. As far as the safes go, when I mean that they could be storing guns, you have several things that could be inside of your saves. You have badges that are going to give you extra turns at the end of the game. You have guns that can be used in the final showdown, and you have gold that is going to add to your total worth when you go to the final showdown. There are also some special safes that are added in the game that you can play with for some more advanced rules. So let's go ahead and take a turn here real quick, and we'll start with the green player here. So green and purple are currently on the same team, and let's say he wants to steal a safe from the brown player here. So what he could do is take a card, and he would play it directly to the safe that he would like to steal. So at this point, the defending player, which is the brown player, has the option to go through and also play a gun card to be able to defend. So right now you have two players are battling over this safe right here, and you have the brown player that's going to roll the black dice, and you're going to have the green player who's going to roll the red dice. And the way this works is that each player rolls their own individual die, and whoever has the most pips is going to win the duel. So you can see here that the red dice came up blank, and the black dice came up with 2 pips, which means that the brown player in this situation would have successfully defended her safe, and nothing gets stolen. So those 2 cards go away, and 2 new cards would be drawn, or a card would be drawn by each player, so that they can get back up to having 4 cards in their hand. The same thing happens if you're playing to a character's card. You roll dice based on the guns that are selected. Now, what about the bottom actions that you can take on these cards too? So these give you some special abilities that you can do. For example, if your hand is really poor, you can play the Duster and draw 4 cards, then you discard back down to your hand limit. You also have the holster, which states that you can give the gun that's above it, which in this case is the pepper box, to any other player before a robbery or duel is resolved, so you can help someone on your team defend or steal safes. Or you can play a horse, which is going to allow you to move to any establishment with a vacancy. Remember, depending on player count, only a certain number of players can be in each location at any given time. So you can't just move freely if you'd like to. And then the last special action is the Stetson, which allows you to view any 2 safe cards. So you can look at any player's safe cards, any single safe cards, anything like that on the table to see exactly who may have what you want, or you can even look at your teammates to see if maybe they're stacking up guns for use in the final showdown. So that's it for the basic premise of the game. So all you're going to be doing is playing cards, 2 safes, 2 characters, rolling dice, and you're going to do this for 3 rounds. At the end of 3 rounds, you're going to have a kind of an open battle royale, we'll call it. That's where you pick one of the safes that haven't been played, and you're going to flip it straight up in the middle of the table so everyone can see what it is. And then everyone is going to play a card to that safe, and you're going to chuck dice until you have a winner. And whoever wins is going to get that safe. And then you're going to go through another round of playing, and then you're going to do this again with another card. And then you're going to do another round of playing, and then you're going to do another card. And then at that point, everyone's going to have all their safes set up that they can take to the final showdown. If you have any badges or anything like that, you'll take the extra turns at the end of the game before the final showdown, and then you'll count up your safes and your gold that you would have to be able to take you to the next round. So for example, if this is just the setup and these are just the gold that we had, okay, the saloon team would only have 1 gold. The brown player here would have 2 gold, and the other team right there already has 3 gold. So it looks like the Gem Theater would have actually won this just by dealing the cards out and going through. So that means that these 2 players would move on to the final showdown. So how does the final showdown work? It means that you play 1 card from your hand like you would normally, plus if you were hiding any guns in your safes, you would roll all of them at the exact same time. So let's say that we had Molly Johnson and Reverend Smith here are battling in the final showdown. And let's say that this was Reverend Smith's hand, and then this right here is going to be Molly Johnson's safes. So they have 2 safes apiece, and Reverend Smith has a tin badge and the Derringer, and Molly here just has some gold nuggets. So each one is going to play a card that they're going to want to roll for the final showdown. So Molly is going to play the Messenger, so she will roll the black dice, and Reverend Smith has played the Winchester, so he will roll the brown dice. But he also has this gun down here inside of his safe, so he will roll the orange dice as well. And then the highest pip count is going to win. So here you can see we have a tie, so we would re-roll those dice again until we had a winner. In the final showdown, if you lose one time, you flip your card over to the black and white side to indicate that you've lost that time. You'll take your cards back that you played. You'll play a new card from your hand, and you'll roll again until there's a winner. Once you get shot twice, game over, you're out. Last person standing wins. The game is really simple. It's not difficult at all to pick up on. It takes up a really small place on the table. The dice and the components are really nice. These are some really good wood die that have the everything etched. They actually roll pretty quietly. The pips are easily identifiable on each individual die. There is also a graphical chart that comes in with the game to show you the odds of each die beating the other. So pretty cool there. Let's get back down to the table again. We're going to clean everything up, and we're going to go over some of the more specific rules and then get into final thoughts. Now, before final thoughts, let's take a look at some other rules for Deadwood that I didn't explain during the quick little playthrough that we saw. So there's a strict 3 safe limit in Deadwood. So if you have more than 3 safes, you'll be giving one of the ones that you own to the player with the lowest number of safes, or your choice of player if there's a tie. When playing a holster card to help one of the other players, if more than one player plays a holster to the person rolling dice, they can only choose one holster to help with. So during the first portion of the game, at most during each turn, you can only roll 2 dice. If your holster is not kept, then it's returned to you and given back to your hand. You don't discard the card. So you can't roll a ton of dice during just the first portion of the game. During the final showdown, whenever you're all chucking dice, if there's ties or anything like that, you just pick the dice back up and roll again until you resolve for a winner. The same thing during the main portion of the game. So the game itself is really simple. You're playing a card, you chuck some dice. You give a player to help some cards, or a helpful card, they chuck some dice. Everybody gets a turn, then you all fight over a safe. Everyone else gets another turn, you fight over another safe again. After the third round, then you go into the final showdown. You count up your gold, you count up your guns, and then you just keep rolling until the last person stands. I think the game itself is really fun. However, I would not recommend playing it with less than 5 players. If you're going to play with 2, 3, or 4, it just doesn't flow very well. There's not enough time, there's not enough turns to really go through and do anything. I mean, yeah, you get the same number of turns in a 5-player game that you do a 4-player game, but at least in a 5-player game, the establishments aren't even. You get one that only has 1 person in them, and you know that they're probably trying to get somebody out of one establishment, so that way they might be able to get a teammate or something. And it just doesn't work very well with less than 5 players. I also wouldn't recommend playing with more than 7 players. I've played with 8, and I thought the game just really slowed down and overstayed its welcome. If you go up to 9 players, you reduce the hand count for your cards from 4 to 3, and you only take 2 turns versus 3 turns. But I don't see where that adds anything else to the game. It just makes it seem like you're not playing as long and you have so many more people at the table. My sweet spot is 5 to 7 players, and I prefer playing this game with an odd player count, so that way the establishments aren't necessarily even. So I think that really works well. As far as the rulebook and everything, I think it's really nicely explained. If you feel like I didn't do a good job of explaining the playthrough in the game, the rulebook does a great job of that. And one of the really nice things that I like about Façade Games is in the back of their rulebook, they give you a description of all the characters that you can play, because Deadwood is a real place. And 1876, some pretty awful things happened there. And the characters that you're playing were kind of like real people. So you can get a biography or a short story about each of those players and what happened to them in Deadwood. So I think that's really cool, and the same thing goes in Tortuga and Salem. They have that same little excerpt there about the characters that you're playing. So I thought that was really unique. So, my final thoughts on Deadwood 1876. I like the game. It's not my favorite in the Dark City series. I still think Salem takes that honor for me. But I think between 5 and 7 players, the game really, really clicks. I love the components in this game. I think the wood meeples, the coasters for the locations you're playing in. I love the wooden dice. I think the theme comes through as much as it can be in this game whenever you're playing and you're chucking the dice around too. So, would highly recommend the game to people who already enjoy Façade Games previous titles. I think the game looks great on a shelf. Actually, Façade Games are the only games that I have on display in our house. Everything else is just kind of kept in a closet because my wife's not a gamer. But these don't look like board games. So this is something that I can keep out on a shelf in a display type area, and I get really excited when people ask me about them because I'm like, hey, let's open this up because it's not a book, right? It actually has some really cool components and pieces inside. So that's it for Deadwood 1876. Hope you enjoyed this review. You can check me out on Instagram at Gaming While Bearded, Facebook Gaming While Bearded. If you like this video, feel free to like it, subscribe. There's going to be more content coming. I'm going to get to the rest of the Dark City series in the future as well. So if you want to see those gameplays, I'm going to be getting them to the table too. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you at the table next time.